part about my job is not, people come in and they feel like they're vain for wanting to make their breasts look good, just treat this cancer. Like, yes, of course, we're treating the cancer. But the big part is that I want you to be able to look at yourself in the mirror 5, 10, 20 years down the road and go, I didn't have breast cancer.
This is Caleb Steffen with Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery. I'm here with my very good friend, Dr. Rao from the Bayou. So thanks for coming on the podcast. And
It is.
this is currently, I don't know when this will air, but it's currently Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well,
I think I know some of it, but there may be some stuff I don't know. So I can't wait to get surprised.
yeah, man, it's been, 7 years since we've been together on a regular basis and
Right,
trained over 7 years. But I guess in my mind, I think like, you know me, I catch up with you on the phone here and there, but
right.
it's never quite long enough for us to talk about everything. So it's good
True.
to to see your face, one like we were just talking about, and yeah, to catch up for real. So yeah, there is a lot that's been going on that I kind of brush over because I just I don't looking back on pictures. I'm like, man, that's a lot of stuff I've done in just a year, and I just forget about a lot of it. But yeah, I'm Jeffrey Rowell. I'm a plastic surgeon down in Houma, Louisiana, on the Bayou, which is about an hour outside of New Orleans. It's my hometown. I'm born and raised down here, and I love it down here. It's really good people, good culture. And Caleb and I met whenever we were in training up in Tennessee, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Caleb was quite a fun guy to train with, and
Yeah.
good friends, and I moved back down here and found my wife up there, Caitlin, who was my first week up there. Moved her down here to the Bayou, and fast forward about 7 years, just growing a solo practice still, and got a couple of kids, a couple of boys. As far as how when people ask how do you define yourself, I don't often go to profession in my mind. I really respect and love what I do, but I always say I am a family man first, and like to think I'm a good-hearted person, and I run off of a lot of creative ideas and projects, and just optimizing all of these things that come to me, and it fits right in with the profession, I feel, because I love people. I love creative ideas and things, and I love using my hands to do them. So it all matched up perfectly. But yeah, as we'll get to in a little bit, I got a lot of things that interest me outside of just work. So
That's pretty great. Yeah, that's one of the things we like about you. You touched on something already that I think is pretty neat. We were all in training together at University of Tennessee, and you come as the new fellow, board certified general surgeon, training with them, and then all of a sudden you pick out this nurse and it's off to the races. What happened with that?
that, like any big decision in my life, I never really sat down and discerned over it. I feel like it just came to me or gravitated towards me. I never really thought about going to med school that hard, going to general surgery, going into plastics. It just kind of just let it happen. I'm fortunate to say that. And it's kind of that way with Caitlin. I was just moving there. I've never really dated a nurse, and didn't know a soul in Chattanooga, and she was in the operating room, and what really linked us and still links us to this day the strongest is music. We're sitting there with Dr. Jemison doing a hand case, and she was playing some good music, and some unique music that not everybody listens to, and I said, that's this band, right? And she said, yeah. And so she played a couple other songs, and ended up talking with her later, and they were going out to the Friday night event downtown Chattanooga, the summer Friday night music concert.
So
And
you kind of glossed over an important part though, like who facilitated whom going to the Friday night event? How did that happen? Like, there's got to be someone had to initiate it. So who was that person? Because I've always wanted to
she
know that.
she would say, she should be here and she can clarify, but
I'd like.
if I
Well, we won't
remember,
have. You can find that out at home. You can just tell your story right now.
my side of it was yeah, I didn't I mean, she was definitely very attractive, and a nice gal. I never really made anything of it initially, and then thought she was kind of out of my league. And then I said, okay, I'll meet up with y'all. And I knew my neighbor. My neighbor was going down there too with some friends, so I went with all of them, and then linked up with Caitlin. And she makes it sound like she was. She knew I was coming and was excited about it. So I mean, I like to think we both kind of hooked each other equally, you know. So
Uh-huh. You're just gonna call it mutual, huh?
I call it mutual because,
All right, nothing wrong with that.
although she's pretty good about getting what she wants. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, and you were
I'm
the
more
and you're that
passive.
somebody, huh?
Yeah, and I'm more passive. So maybe I was the victim there.
I
So
see.
yeah, I think she got to me. But like I said, I'm open to anything, and especially a pretty girl that listens to good music.
Oh, that's awesome. So a very, yeah, a very successful lose on your part, huh?
Yeah,
For
yeah, I'll take
power.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
take
funny.
it.
That's funny. Well, so you guys have been married how long now?
7 years. I like to say I had 12 hours of freedom. We got married in July 1st of 2017, and the end of resident fellowship was June 30th. So I got married, the later on that evening, and then been happily married ever since. And yeah, I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old boy. So two boys.
That sounds
Uh,
pretty busy.
yeah, yeah. But I'd like to have more, but Caitlin's kind of pumping the brakes. But I need a girl. I grew up around. I'm one of five boys. I grew up in the middle of five boys. I like all the boy energy. It's fun, but I feel like I've watched all my brothers have mostly girls. I have mostly nieces, not as many nephews, and I love having them in the household. I wish I could have a little girl, so I'm still trying.
Hmm.
But yeah,
What are you gonna do to bring her around? How are you gonna like sweeten the deal, convince her that you need a girl?
I don't know. It's slowly. She's got two older brothers herself, so I use that one the most. Like, well, it was fun you growing up with your two older brothers, so
Yeah,
I try that one the most.
you're
And
just gonna wear her down.
I just eventually, maybe I don't know, maybe I'll win, maybe I won't. We'll see.
Time will tell. Time will tell. That's funny.
Uh,
Well, one thing that we don't talk about or haven't talked about very much was what was Dr. Rao like when he was a kid? How would your mom and your dad, what would they think about you, and what would they say about what Jeffrey was like when he was running around the bayou?
so my mom, rest in peace. She passed a few years
I know
back.
that.
Cancer, but she was a very vibrant person, well known in our community. A lot of people knew and loved her. In fact, we started a foundation in her name. And she was chasing after my two older brothers, and she would say that I was the easy kid because I was kind of off on my own, good old middle kid, and kind of just doing things by myself, my own little creative corner, just doing my own thing. And so she would always freak out and ask, "Where's each kid?" And I was the one that was just hanging out by himself in the corner. So she said I was the easiest one. So I always like to
Hmm.
hold that flag up amongst my brothers, and I like to
Hmm.
say I'm the
Shame
reason.
him a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm the reason why the next two got to come around because I was so easy to raise.
Uh-huh.
But that's my joke I put on them. But my dad's adjective he uses a lot, especially with the nephews and nieces, is that's one funny kid, and that means that he thinks you're cute and he loves you, and it's just his one adjective, and he'd say that about me a lot, and I hear from OR staff that have worked with him for years said, "Oh, we've heard stories about you for years before you moved back." So a lot of them knew who I was and knew about me before I ever got here. So he's proud of us all. But yeah, he would definitely say that's one funny kid because he has some funny stories that he tells. But yeah, funny. And they would also say I'm the kind of go-to artsy or creative one too.
Hmm.
I cut everybody in my family's hair, brothers. I cut friends. I cut, numerous people, med school friends, residency friends. I even cut a patient's hair once. I mean, I still cut my own hair since I was 13. So anything that needed a creative touch in any way, is I go to Jeff. It's like even my older brothers weren't. They were pretty good, artists, but they'd still come to me because they know I'm too picky and I got to do it, a certain way. And that extends to everything I do today. Every organization and thing I'm part of, that's I use my strength where it's needed.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's what they'd say.
That's pretty cool. Is there a number one or number two story, a top story that people this is the one they tell all over and over again with little Jeff was 7 or 8 or
Oh, yeah, I guess the one that just popped in my head is when Home Alone came out. I was about the same age as Macaulay Culkin, but it came out and they said, Jeff, this is your show," because I would be in the corner just minding, not caring what everybody else was doing, and I got left home alone one particular time. I was probably about 6, and I remember it very vividly. But I loved it. I was totally at peace with it. And everybody else, mom did the thing where she thought she counted everybody, and they were out in the getting in the boat to go ride and enjoy the day, and they realized I was missing. But I still remember that. I have a good memory. That's for my mom also. I have a good memory, and I remember sitting there, people were calling me, and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm sitting here in the kitchen. And so they tell that story like, yep, Jeff would be left behind because he's always doing his own thing. So yeah, Home Alone is definitely the one that my mom goes, "This is your show, Jeff."
that's one I hadn't heard before. Well, you brought it up just a minute ago. Tell us a little bit about that foundation that you set up for your
Yeah.
mom. I know you had a big event recently and everything. What's going on
Right.
there?
It's called the Rhoda Ann Giat Rao Foundation, named after my mom, and we started it about 4 years ago. And it's a nonprofit organization that is geared towards raising money for special needs education in our community. I have a nephew who's autistic, and we experienced with my brother a lot of the struggles to get appropriate education, and good faith-based education that we grew up around. And my mom, we discussed it, a lot of different ideas to what kind of where the foundation would be geared towards. And my mom, for sure, this is a passion of hers. She was very involved with the school and the church, and a lot of people knew her, and as a perfect name to rally a lot of energy behind, a lot of money to make this work. And we're proud to say that it's in its third year or fourth year, and it's got 6 kids in the program, 3 graduated. Or finished finished to go on to the high school program, and they've got a few in the waiting list, and it keeps growing. So it was a huge need, and I feel like I don't go a few months without having somebody that talks about it. It's always a topic because there's a lot of people in this community that struggled with finding appropriate education for their kids. So it's a big void, definitely, that is filled now, and we're real proud of it. And we put on an annual, uh, to call it a tailgate party for called Row Fest, and we have all fun kids games, bands. We have a bunch of very delicious food, and it's just a good gathering of the community and good support for a great program. And we're going to do a spring event this year, but it's really great, and it unites our family, and it keeps my mom's great energy. That is, I'm biased, but I mean, a lot of people, knew her well, and there's a lot of stories just about her, about how wonderful of a person she was. Just any kind of joyfulness that I feel like any of us have, it's all from her. I mean, my dad too, but I mean, my mom's just the beating pulse of our family, and she just never met a stranger. I had med school buddies that met her 2 or 3 times. It felt like they knew her their whole life, and mom would message them on the side. I didn't even know this until after she passed, just about little connections that she would always keep, and it was always very genuine. And it just came naturally to her. And we was very fortunate to have her as my mom, for sure.
Hmm. So if somebody wanted to get involved in that charity or get involved in what you guys are doing, how would they go about doing that?
So on Facebook, we have the Rhoda Ann Giat Rao Foundation on Facebook, and they also have the connecting web page. And I'm not sure of the exact web page at the moment, but it's connected through the Facebook account.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where you go, Pat.
So if they connect with your social media at the end of the program,
Yeah,
they'll be able
they'll
to
have
see
that.
that as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good. That's great. So you mentioned a lot of artistic things and things you've been up to. You've been back home now. Tell us a little bit about that round name, the medical name in your community. I mean, you're the first surgeon, I guess, in that area, or is that not
Uh,
quite right?
yeah, it's contagious, I guess. Yeah, it's funny. my dad's a surgeon, so my dad was the first one, and he's one of a lot of siblings, and his two younger brothers also general surgeons, and they all we're all in practice together. The youngest one moved north to Maine, but it's still my uncle and my dad together. My two older brothers are radiologists, and he told all of us don't go into medicine. So he was just a good example and said, it's not what it once was, and encouraged and said, don't do it. And then he said, well, definitely don't go into surgery. And so I'm the only one who went into surgery. My younger brother's a family practice doc, and I got another younger brother, youngest, who's an appraiser, and he we call him the smart one. No, but we all we are all different and unique in our own ways, and hence like in any family, but we just all found a common interest in medicine, and it's just funny how it ended up that way. And we don't, when I grew up, I didn't really know what my dad did till I was 12, but it just worked out or matched well with, I think, like I mentioned earlier, I love people. I love taking care of people, and I love being creative while doing it and working with my hands. So some of those things I get from my dad for sure. So, and I still love general surgery. I'm still, use my general surgery skills and help take general surgery call from my dad and them. So it helps keep us connected. And, I like helping in that way, and just a weekend call here and there to cover their patients, and they cover mine when I leave town. So it works out because there's not any other plastic surgeon in town. So I need the help. Uh,
Absolutely.
so, so yeah. And I also have, some cousins and a couple of uncles, several uncles. So it extends right outside just my immediate family too in the medical world. So yeah, there's a lot of Dr. Rouse here. So I was the only Dr. Rao in Chattanooga and every other place, and then I moved back here, and I'm Dr. Jeff because that's so I got
That's
to
good.
go by first name.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, when you're not, we know a little bit about you and you're younger and a little bit about how you got here. What are you up to these days when you're not doing plastic surgery?
So that's the Rhoda Angiat Rao Foundation is one of my foundations, but I got three other ones that I'm big on, and one of them is the Hosh Grant Association. It's a nonprofit that helps revitalize downtown Houma. It's just to kind of get it, it's kind of with the hurricanes and just over the years, the downtown area, like a lot of downtowns, have been kind of pushed aside or not much focus on them. And this nonprofit group, a group of good guys, a lot of them I've known for years, all got together, and I joined them, and I've of course been the creative guy in that group. And some of those pictures I sent, or some of those things we built, like that arch, this big steel and wooden arch that I sent in one of the pictures, we put
Let
on
me let me take a look at this arch here.
yeah, that and a few other smaller things that I've done over the years. I've added the creative aesthetic appeal to a lot of the stuff to make it look more formal and official. I just kind of have a thing for how I feel like things are supposed to look.
Mhm.
And it's a great group, and never have been to a meeting where everybody's more excited to be there, and for a good cause. We built a bandstand downtown Houma. I didn't build that, but I'm just saying the group is just doing a lot of good stuff, building kayak or paddle launches in the Bayou that runs through downtown Houma. That used to be a main thoroughfare way that people used to get around here. But there's so that group and is fun, and then but I'm just telling you about that one to get to my biggest passion, which I know you know about, is my home and farm life, which is kind of just evolved over time. I found an old house that
How old is this house?
this house is over 120 years old, like built in the late 1890s, and it's on 7 acres, along with my neighbors adjoining several, like 100 acres that he's got. He's in an old plantation home that was built around 1880 or so, and he and I have linked up to start Bayou Shepherd Farms. We raise sheep on the Bayou, so we did that about 2.5 years ago, and we've just sent our second round of lamb off to the butcher, and we're trying to make lamb a well-known thing down here because, of course, as everybody knows, the big item in South Louisiana to eat is seafood. You know, you can't beat
Right.
crawfish and shrimp and crab.
Hmm.
That crawfish by far to me dominates the market. And it's and some reason lamb is just not a commonly known thing to eat. It's at fine restaurants. There's a nice couple of nice restaurants here that serve it. But we're trying to bring it out, and it's a breed of sheep called Katahdin. It's a hair sheep, so it doesn't have wool, so it self sheds like a dog kind of.
Okay.
And they were able to tolerate these warmer temperatures, and we've recently gone to what we call sheep school. It was just our one of the pictures I sent. We went network with some other shepherds in the region, in the South Central region of it's a South Central Katahdin Association meeting, and just growing the flock, growing the business. And the lamb will hopefully extend to having farm chicken, although I do have a bunch of chickens, but we're going to farm raise hopefully chickens and eggs one day. And we got a couple of crawfish ponds in the back of my neighbor's property too that we're going to build into the whole system and keep growing it. I hope to get to vegetables and stuff one day. That's my dream, and to have a little farm shop and have sell fresh eggs and a little coffee shop and fresh produce, not just from our farm but from other farms in the area, because there's just really not that there's not a good store for that in Houma, in Schriever. Actually, technically, we're right outside of Houma in Schriever, Louisiana. But
So is
yeah,
this kind of a homestead idea that you're thinking for you personally, and then also have a kind of a local produce store? Is that more or less the vision that you're thinking
right.
of?
That's it.
Sure.
That's it. And it's I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that the feel of that until I always enjoyed going to our hunting property in Mississippi growing up and being out in nature. We were camping all the time when I was a kid. My dad would take us out in his motorhome every other weekend, and it's our good little retreat for our family. And so I always loved the outdoors. But then to really just, I was always the one also to plant flowers and then vegetation throughout my parents' yard, as our summer job. I would take over that job. Um, but um, but yeah, it grew into me finding this beautiful piece of property with a beautiful old house on it, because I love old houses and doing that part too. I'm big into renovating and ideas and building various furniture for the inside of the house. But I've if I had my way, I would be half my time here at Rao Plastic Surgery and half of my time spent at home with my boys and Caitlin and growing the farm. I've hired a couple of a nurse and a CRNA's husbands from the OR to kind of live my dream job at the house. They've been my right and left hand men to help carry out my projects. So some of the other pictures I sent are some of the farm projects, like movable sheep feeding units and stuff like that. So and then there's countless things. I got a sketchbook that's just never ending, and I'm always prioritizing different things to for them to help me carry out, so I can come to work to and not worry about it and not have to think about fooling with it on the weekend, because as you know, with two toddlers running around, you don't have much time anymore and much free time to carry out some of these tasks. So
Yeah. Well, if someone's listening right now, sometimes they might think about all your different interests and hobbies, and you're a board certified general surgeon, you're a board certified plastic surgeon. We'll get into, what all those sorts of things mean. But you're also an artist. Maybe you can describe for people this sheep that you were telling me about, this mama and these two lambs that you
yeah,
have so beautifully painted here.
yeah.
Uh,
It's a picture that I took of our first lambs back in I think a year and a half ago. And it's one of our well-known mama ewes, they call them. Her name is Dum Dum. She's like the leader of the pack. And that's an affectionate name we had for her. But she had two babies. That was Rocky. We don't usually name them, but these we just happened to name because they were our first, our well-known ones. We usually only we only know the rams. The Rams are the few ones that stick around. but the Rocky and Cowgirl were both key, first, like a Cowgirl was the first lamb that we raised here to then give birth this past year. So, and they took this beautiful pose together that I took a picture of, and then I then painted it. And I used the actual hair from that fell off the sheep to in the painting. So it's probably sticks out a good inch. You may or may not be able to tell in the picture, but it's a quite large painting. It's about the size of the actual sheep, and it's above my younger boy's bed in his bedroom. And so, yeah, I know I don't paint enough, like we discussed. I don't get to do a lot of my creative stuff enough, but when I do, I take a lot of pride in it and try to make it as perfect as I can, and hope to do more and more.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, but kind of where I was going with that is, you do so many different things well, and you do them well, and you're a surgeon and a dad and a farmer and an artist and all those things. That makes me think of, I mean, big stuff. People in the old days, you're Da Vinci, you're Michelangelo. What would you say to people who are like, how can you possibly be one person and really have all these different talents? What's going on there? And I don't think you're really an anomaly on that either. I mean, I talked to a lot of my plastic surgery friends who are kind of that way. What's going on there?
I this kind of just reminds me of like talking to Caitlin, my wife, about, the idea of going into medical school, and she made a comment that I never even, and a lot of people think like this. It's I never would have even thought to go to med school, or even considered it. And she's a smart person, like a lot of people, at various levels, and not like you need to be a doctor to be. I mean, you need to, only doctors are smart. Only you got to be a certain level, but it's more just a self-limiting belief, that I think that a lot of people put on themselves, is my viewpoint, because there's a lot of things that I can't do that I admire in other people. A lot of it's easy to look at, my dad's friend has called me, you're a Renaissance man. He's always kind of made that joke. A couple of them, they kind of like to say that over the years, but because art is attractive, it's appealing, it's sexy, and but in my mind, or you probably agree, in a lot of other people's skills, like with whatever profession or whatever skills they have, that stuff is appealing to me because I don't have that. It's not in my
Hmm.
makeup to do some of what they can tolerate or put up with, that's necessary to get by in our culture, or just to be the best person that I hope to be. Like I wish I can deal with finances better. I wish I can be a better business person. I wish I could do, a lot of things. Um, and so a lot whenever so taking a step back to your question, I think that I don't think, I just have a personality or a brain that's kind of always interested in trying to grab as much information, because I somehow at some point, I think in college, realized how much I really love to learn. It hit me one night studying real late, and I go, "This is fun." So,
Hmm.
and then
Nerd alert.
yeah, I guess yeah, and then you kind of, and then you can't get enough of it. So it's just about trying to fit it all in your life, and a lot of times nowadays you get so, especially with kids, you only have so much time to do things. But I generally try to force been trying to schedule my life to where I can mix in at least a little bit of all of my interest into my at least weekly life. So I feel like it's satisfies my need. I don't. I feel like if you, like anything, if you have the burning desire, it does. It's not hard to do, and that's the root of it. And most people probably have it, just haven't found it, if they really uh, wonder or how I do all this. And that's not the goal in life. I mean, sometimes I do like to just relax and just be at peace, and enjoy, just stop and smell the roses, because that's the downside of running, is trying to do all these things. And um, a lot more lately, I can say, especially since the weather has gotten better, I'm able to stop and walk around at, the beautiful place that I get to call home, out in Shreveport, with these 100+ year old oaks all over the property. It's so gorgeous with these sheep walking in the distance, and I got a peacock, I got a donkey, I got the boys running around, and I just go, stop, look at it, because I never really do that enough. And so it's all about balance, and it can be seem cool to accomplish things or do a lot, but I've started to just put no on my weekends, and I don't put any tasks on my plate. I just say whatever I do, I do. So in my mind, I used to get very disappointed if I'm like, oh, I got to knock that out by the end of the weekend. But nowadays, to force myself to enjoy what I have, stop and smell the roses. I put no expectation on anything that I do at home.
That's great. That's great. Um, all right, we got to get to this. Sports. Do you like sports? Do you have a team? Probably not. Probably not.
Probably not. No, probably not. No, you can't. That's part of our culture down here. You can't. We've talked plenty about our Tigers, your Tigers and my Tigers.
There's too many Tigers in the SEC, don't you think?
I know.
Sorry, Tigers, LSU, Auburn.
We have an actual Tiger though, and Mike the Tiger, our mascot. But yeah, big LSU fan. Grew up that way. I was in LSU for my general surgery training. My dad went to LSU for also, so a lot of family are connected, and it really is more to me about a bonding thing for our family and friends. If I could have gone, I still haven't been to a game. We have season tickets. I haven't been to a game yet this year.
Shame on you.
The one I know, but I'm going to the Alabama LSU game next weekend. But the every time I'd go, that nobody's going, or we had things going on, so I go up there to be with family and friends. And if I'm not sure I'm going to be with family and friends and get the most out of it, I'm not there only for the game. I'm there for the full experience for hours before the tailgate and everything. And the game's just kind of the good culminating part of it all. But yeah, we're big Tiger fans. So we like college football and college baseball. Obviously, that's a win-win for LSU's standpoint, because they're usually pretty competitive most years. And
Prediction for the game on Saturday, or is that what's coming up?
yeah,
LSU
yeah, this is an off weekend coming up, but it's the next
week
Saturday.
after.
But we had a little struggle game against A&M, but I think that I think it's gonna be a very good. Brian Kelly has not lost in Tiger Stadium at night yet, so it's hard to win in Death Valley at night. So I'm predicting that we have a good close game, and we're gonna win by a touchdown at the very end against Alabama, somewhere in the 30s to 30 something, 20 something. It seems like a safe answer, but I think that's where we're going. So,
All right. Any closing thoughts for this part where we're talking about who is Dr. Rao before we get to some of the medical stuff?
I think that pretty much captures most of what's coming to mind at this moment. I just I enjoy how my brain works. I always say that, like, I can see as a kid while I just sit in the corner, because sometimes I just sit there and just doodle, and I enjoy that about myself. I'm very grateful that some people, we don't know how each other's brains works. It's hard to imagine that, but I enjoy the ideas that come to my mind, but I don't have all of them. And I love reaching out to other people and collaborating and projects, and just ideas make me go, so
Okay.
uh,
Who would
that's my
Dr. Rao? Who would Dr. Rao be if he weren't a plastic surgeon?
I would be, I mean, I would be a farmer. I say farmer, but I left out that I would be a horticultural type person mostly, and farmer equally. There's two documentaries: The Biggest Little Farm, about a couple that grew this big farm out in California over a 10-year period, very diverse animals and fruits and vegetables. And then another one is called The Gardener. It's about Frank Cabot, a guy that built up his family's property in Canada, built this beautiful work of art garden, horticultural expert. And if you find me on Sunday mornings, my favorite thing to watch is Gardener's World, which is a British gardening show that's been going on for over 50 years. With the lead guy is still Monty Don, but he's kind of fading out. But it's nothing more peaceful than that. It's sitting there watching him just work in his garden with his dog. That would be me when I retire. Will just be me working in a garden, just building up the beautiful symphony of plants and flowers everywhere, I could do that the rest of my life, be very content. So one day I'll get to that.
Okay. On that note, just to wrap things up, kind of rapid fire, favorite book or
Favorite
best book
book?
you read lately?
The Creative Curve. It's a book about how, in the same vein of what we're talking about here, is that creativity and genius is just a social concept and everybody's got it. And so it's a beautiful book, Creative Curve. I love it.
Okay. Best movie?
Best movie, the Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that movie.
It really always such I don't know. I loved it ever since college. I think I've watched the Jim Caviezel one, and
Hmm.
I love that's always kind of been my obvious one, and nobody's ever really passed it up. Although there's been a lot of good ones lately, I just never processed it to allow that one to fall behind back from number one.
Okay. Best song?
Best song. That's a tough one because I like to always say when the song comes on, I go, that's top 10 or that's top five.
A lot of
Uh,
top tens, aren't there?
but but I will say that if I had to, like, I'll put it in this category. If I had to listen to one song the rest of my life, I love classical music. I played piano in my past and other instruments. But I love, if I had to listen to one song the rest of my life, it'd be Nocturne in E flat major by Chopin. It's so
There
peaceful.
you go.
Most people have heard it, but it's such a peaceful, lovely song, and I've kind of almost played it. I've got it. It's hard to play, but I'll learn it one day.
So this is Caleb Steffen again with Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery, and I'm back with Dr. Rao, and we are going to be talking about basically what is it like to be a board certified plastic surgeon. We want to know about your practice. What is the typical work week like for you? I know there's some stuff is seasonal in terms of busier or not busier and that sort of thing, but what's it like? What is clinic like? What is surgery? Some of these people aren't going to know what the difference of those things are, or how a doctor spends their week, much less a plastic surgeon. So
Right. Yeah. When I was a kid, like I said, I didn't know my dad did till I was 12, and he'd bring home videos of like a vascular surgery. They were doing an aorta by film, and I'm watching this on a video. I'm like, y'all do this? And then I said he goes every day. So he operates almost every day in his schedule, and that's how I imagine maybe I'd be. But plastic surgery, I do, we do fewer, bigger cases, and compared to a lot of other surgeons, at least in my experience, and my typical week is Monday, Wednesday, Friday OR days, and Tuesday, Thursday clinic days.
okay.
Pretty much all day. I don't mix them. I'm either in OR mode with my scrubs on, or I'm in dress clothes seeing patients in the clinic. And I like that. That even I'm focused on one or the other each day. Although I will sometimes see patients in the afternoon after having a surgery, but it's surgery takes a lot out of you, and it's always a toss up. Surgery can take a lot physically out of you, but then clinic can be mentally kind of just exhausting too in the same vein. But I enjoy them both. I enjoy talking to patients and coaching them through the process of whatever they're going through. And I also enjoy just getting in there for several hours on end, 5, 6, 7 hours for some surgeries, depending upon what it is, and
Mhm.
and put the music on and just getting after it. I enjoy both aspects of it. The nice thing about plastic surgery, there's always good and bad sides about every profession. One of the better things I say about plastic surgery is that it is technically a very difficult profession. Every little thing that you do is noticed, and I luckily, the way that I am, I always say I'm pickier than more than 95% of my patients. So I notice things that they don't notice, and I try not to bring them up if they don't notice them, but I'm always trying to make perfection as much as I can. Um, for them. And I always have a few sayings that I'll commonly say. I won't go a couple of days without saying, is that the body makes the rules, we have to follow them. That's one of my preferred
Mhm.
ones. And it's true. It's a medium. The body is something that is going to move on you when you go when I build a piece of furniture, it's going to look the same when I walk away from it, as long as no moisture or anything, you don't leave it outside or anything, the sun doesn't hit it, certain things, it's going to look the same. But you go to operate on a person, the patients don't always see it. It's like, I gotta trust that what's going to happen here, the swelling's going down, it'll settle into what we want it to be, and you got to anticipate that. So that kind of demand on me, on you two, is like, as is a joy. I like that. I like that challenge. It keeps me in check. I'm always trying to do right by my patients. I always want to, I never always say I walk out of the operating room not regretting a thing. I do as much as I know I can do, and I don't leave until I'm happy. As happy as I can be. I'm never truly happy, but it's always the enemy of good is better kind of thing that you're playing with when it comes to getting things is the way you want them. But
Yeah, you kind of mentioned how kind of the artistry, and then also in terms of building things, right? There's a lot of comparisons for, a general surgeon. Some of the stuff general surgery does might be compared to plumbing, or some of the stuff neurosurgery does, or we do in plastic surgery with nerves might be compared to being an electrician or something like that. Sometimes I think in terms of what we are doing, I feel like you're specifically maybe alluding to skin. Tell people a little bit about that. There's things that go into what sorts of things go into skin that make it where the body makes the rules in terms of what's the skin going to do after surgery. You've seen it all, and so
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. But what do the people who don't know what we both know about skin that affects the plastic surgeon when he's selecting the operation or managing expectations for how something will go?
Right. So everybody comes with various skin types. I mean, you have youthful, beautiful, tight skin that can be mostly a wonderful thing. And patients that are seeing you with that kind of, they don't usually have a problem. But if you're doing a breast augmentation, you got to rely on that tighter skin to stretch for you and fill out a breast in a way that a patient wants it to. So you have to trust the skin to do its job. But mostly the problematic skin is some of the stuff that's on the other end of the spectrum, the loose stuff with the stretch marks and the loss of elasticity, and people that have healing problems, that develop scars, that everybody comes in and goes, "Ooh, look at that plastic surgeon. Can't see his scars," and we all take that. We go, "Yeah, I did that." But we all know as plastic surgeons that another saying is that we make the incision, the body makes the scars. So but it's all going on you, no matter what happens. It's like, well, you did that, you need to own it, and you do. But I'm just saying that it's tough. You only can do so much in some situations. And we all are always closing skin the same careful way. It's just how the body wants to react to it. So yeah, you got varying skin tightnesses and types, and certain expectations from some patients to be that 20-year-old person with the tightest nice skin after at 50 years old, and that's sometimes difficult. So yeah, there's a lot of the skin, the largest organ on the body that we operate on. But back to it as a profession, it's everything we do is only skin deep. So if patients are nervous in the morning, I say, we're only operating on your skin. We're not operating your heart, your lungs, your brain, your neck. It's like, we're good. We're just skin deep for a long. Takes a long time, but we're only skin deep. And so
There you go.
that's my soothing thing, because most people do say I'm nervous. I think I can count 3 people that have ever said I'm not nervous, I'm excited. So
True.
anyway.
True. Well, so a surgeon, in the 80s, people joked that surgery was kind of a cowboy sport or a lone wolf or whatever, and the surgeon was the head of the team and all that. But culture has changed a little bit in the last 40 years. So tell us a little bit now. What is it like as a surgeon? Who does a plastic surgeon work with during the week? What is the team like? You're the leader of the team in many respects, but who is part of the team that you get to interact with, and what are those interactions like in whether it's clinic or the OR?
Yeah, so I'm a solo practice guy, but as most people, I'm sure I'm similar. You got your office staff here. We got our receptionist. I got my surgery scheduler, and also my manager type person, as well as my wife, who's my aesthetic nurse, and as well as my nurse who's part-time, who's kind of my concierge type person who really develops that good rapport with the patients. And I also have a medical assistant because on busy clinic days, you really need two clinical people helping with taking dressings down, helping do various things. And because I like to get as much in as I can, I try not to. I like to get people into the clinic to see me if they need to at any time, new patients or follow-ups. I don't like anybody ever feeling like they can't get in here. So I can get busy on certain days with add-ons and so forth. But yeah, that's most of the office staff that I'm working with, and the ones that I'm dealing with hands-on are definitely the two clinical ones, as well as the surgery scheduler, kind of talking about ins and outs of the schedule coming up. When it comes to the operating room, that's very important to, always, that's an important group of people, and to have right and understand how you do things. So you got the anesthesiologist and or the CRNA, the nurse anesthetist, and you also have your nurse that's in there, and then your scrub and your first assist, and that makes up most of the team. And the one of the things that we all know too well is that one of the most important qualities you need to have to work in any of those positions in the operating room is you need to be a good conversationalist, because we're in long surgeries and some of this stuff can be routine, and that's the people you get to sometimes know the best, because you're sitting there doing an hour-long closure requires no conversation about the actual task. It's only conversation about, I don't know, what is your favorite song? What would you have, and random topics. And one of the hardest questions always is what music do we want to listen to? And so because you have to have
What's the answer?
it varies. I am a I talked about my favorite song earlier, but my favorite radio, like, you play certain bands radio, they play music like it. Caitlin and I are really big into the Red Clay Strays, a band out of Mobile. Got a very new, awesome sound. That's kind of a mix of gospel and country rock, but it just sounds really good. We saw them twice already this year.
Wow.
And then like Nathaniel Rateliff, I love Camp, the banjo of Camp. I can go on and on, but those are probably my top three right now that I've played. But yeah, that definitely sets the mood and sets the tone for how the room feels. So it's an enjoyable time to be in surgery, especially when you have good conversation in a surgery that you enjoy, that's going well, which is most of the time for sure. But it's a lot of just chatting, and of course you're doing stuff. I need this suture, I need this, but some of the stuff just becomes second nature, as and you just kind of move with it sometimes. But there's a lot of time when you're sitting there and like, I'm not talking right now, I need to figure this out, and you gotta,
Mhm.
but
We
yeah.
were we we spent a lot of late nights together working on a lot of different surgeries over several years. I look back on that pretty fondly. As you know, I'm also a solo practitioner, so I'm doing all my plastic surgery by myself these days. But I really had a lot of fun. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the neat opportunities you still get to do these days with a friend surgeon. But what's that like operating with a friend or colleague, and those long gone days in at the University of Tennessee? What do you remember about all that?
You are correct. That is some of the fondest memories. I was just talking with one of the girls downstairs, telling them about you and how much fun we had together. And I said, Caleb Steffen's one of the only guys that can definitely outquote me on any movie. Any good
I didn't remember that.
any movie that I would quote, a funny one usually, you would then follow it up and finish the whole line. I go, I can't remember all that, and you would do it with the right inflection and everything that just sounded like the character in the movie. You really, that's one of my, when I think about you in the OR, I think of laughing at all of your different interpret or uh, things from funny movies that you used to say. But yeah, at the same time, one of them is, we had mangled hands. You get these facial traumas that we would be in there for several hours bending plates and doing all the fun stuff. Just like, I got that one from Chattanooga. You got yours too. Yeah, your plate on your.
I was admiring yours. This is a Dr. Rao and Dr. Steffen case right here. This is a skull. This skull is a long story to tell about, but it's pretty neat what we did. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but I do miss that, because obviously, don't remember how your practice is, but mine does not involve any more facial trauma. Although I did do a few when I first got out, but I miss them. I love carpentry. That's one of my hobbies. That I build a lot of furniture over the years, and my orthopedic buddies used to watch me build things, and one of them in particular goes, "Man, why didn't you not go into orthopedics?" And I said, "I like I like making new things, not fixing broken things." Like so
Yeah,
but
that's a good line.
but the face when it's fractured, it takes a little more, I feel like a little bit more of your creativity to pull it. You've seen those total mangled foreheads and
Yeah.
everything, the peel downs, and we've had to fool with, and those are a real challenge, and I enjoyed those a lot. So I do miss that, and then drills and all the various plating systems we had, and that was actually a lot of fun. You didn't think you'd miss that, but I do miss that. And yeah, those were the times. Some of my in my adulthood, our closest friends are our residency and fellowship friends, you know, because you spend those late hours and those many hours in the clinic and doing things and learning, you know, and when you get out and practice, you kind of lose a little bit of that camaraderie because you don't work with other people as much. But yeah, that's some of your. I feel, looking back on life, like that is some of our strongest friendship bonds is in training. So it is a big deal to have a. Luckily, we ended up having a good group with us. You know, everybody that was with us, we all still communicate via text and bounce ideas off each other in our group text. And I love that. You know, it's a good way to touch base. All of us are in 5, 6 different states doing 5 or 6 different types of things, and it's good to see get a pulse on things. So that's I tell patients that a lot. You know, I don't claim to know everything, you know, and you kind of say, well, let me go touch base with my colleagues, and the group chat will get a picture or a question about something, you know, and will respond, and you know, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I don't think I imagined, as a child or as a medical student or something that that'd be the way it is when you're the big boss, because you see everybody that they know everything, and the truth is that you never stop learning, right?
Uh,
And the idea that we have, 5, 6, 7, sometimes more board certified plastic surgeons on the same text thread going over
right.
stuff.
You feel good about the answers on that thing because you'll get a couple of differing things, but you know, I've learned a lot over the years. I've changed the way I've practiced according to what that group text has said, and I have a couple of other ones from residency, but not from my general surgery residency. I got a buddy and or two, but nothing quite like that. A group of plastic surgeons from such a diverse, you know, area, all in one text, and
Mhm.
it's a very it that itself should count as a CME or two a year.
Yeah, that's true. We certainly spend the time, didn't we? Um, You said that you really, in terms of each decision, it more or less came to you, right? In terms of you're not like, this is why I went into medicine wasn't really it. It was more like here was medicine before me, and I stepped into it, right? Is that the right take on your journey through medicine, general surgery, plastic surgery?
Right. I mean, and ever since I you know, I was the black sheep in the family. I didn't think I would go into medicine, or maybe I was looking for reasons not to. I liked creative stuff and I liked architecture. I loved, and some of those things I maybe could have done in another life, but I feel like, you know, getting the chance to, you know, shadow my dad whenever we were young kids and watching how people just, you know, watch how much he cared for people. And I feel like you felt that love and you wanted to help take care of people, and nothing gave you that feeling quite like being in medicine or seeing him and the way people look at him, or you know, people down here would just gift him like a big old bag. I love blueberries, and for every time I eat a blueberry I think of that big brown bag of blueberries that a patient would give him every year, you know, and little things like that that go, this is love and appreciation right here. I don't need a dollar. If I get this, I'm happy. You know,
Yeah.
and my dad was the person that you know, he raised us right unintentionally. He's just a good father. Came from a good family too, and you know, I feel like that's how I just gravitated towards me. I didn't go after it. So even though I kind of would have liked to have done something different just for the sake of being different, I've always said I'm not going to deny something that's obvious and right in my face.
Right.
So I I didn't have to think. I was finishing high school and going to college, and my dad's like, "What are you doing? What are you going to do with your life?" I go, "I think I'm going to go to med school." And he said, "Okay." He said, you need to go to, he wouldn't let me go to LSU because he thought I'd go party and ruin my grades. So I went to my Nicholls State
Was he
University.
right?
Possibly, but I was working in the oyster research lab by the end of my freshman year at college at Nicholls State, which is only, right down the road in Thibodaux, Louisiana, which is pretty much the neighboring city. And yeah, by the end of that first year, I was so ingrained in the department, and I really loved it there. I stayed my full years like my older brothers did, and my two younger brothers did. We all went to Nicholls.
Yeah.
We were so
Legacy.
yeah, yeah. So we all, and so it's as much as I want to do something different. If it didn't make sense, I mean, I ventured out to Tennessee, and it's probably as far as I got away. But other things before that, just I did because it felt right. I never had to put too much of my brain into it. Luckily, and it gravitated towards me. So I maybe, I'm thinking about this an analogy because I'm about to go on an annual golf trip with my brother and a big group of friends. And last year I couldn't make a putt to save my life. And my brother's a really good observer and he's a really good golfer. And he's watching me. He goes, Jeff, every time you grab something, you look at you thinking too much. He goes, you're a field putter. He goes, look at the hole and just putt. And I couldn't miss the rest of the day. I'm
There
like,
you go.
I mean, so I to so I'm a feel person. If I think too much, doesn't work. So it's just like the putting game. Hopefully I duplicate that this weekend. But yeah, it's like, trust your gut, trust your feeling. Luckily, I'm that kind of person. I think that most people can find that in them, and that's what pulled me in where I am today. I could do a lot of things in this world, but I don't think anything fits my personality quite like this profession does. I'm so, as much as I like so much other stuff, I feel like in this current culture and the way life is, I feel like I'm very fortunate to be where I am.
Very good. What is the best thing about being a plastic surgeon?
Um, the best thing is, I mean, beyond just being able to use your creative talents each day, I think that the lifestyle of getting to see your family and sleep at night compared to other ones that require you to be on call a little more and be woken up in the middle of the night a little more often, that kind of thing. That uh, you know, especially since I have two young kids, I'm just kind of getting started, a 3 and a 2-year-old, having control over my life and my practice to be able to focus on them and my wife too to do that. Some people, some professions don't allow you so much flexibility. With that flexibility and these good points comes a lot of, other responsibilities of running a practice and so forth, like, but just zooming out, and saying that's what's great about it is flexibility, good patients that are mostly really happy to see you, and don't have any, don't, I mean, they're really, I mean, I've been fortunate with really nice, good patients. I can't complain, and really hospitals that really, listen to me and try to help me out a lot. So I think that overall it's just a good profession, just lifestyle wise, and to satisfy what I think I'm good at. So.
Very nice. Other things to add in terms of on this area here in terms of your practice or work week or what is kind of the overall uh, Dr. Rao Plastic Surgery Week, and next after we cut from this and we'll go on to deep flaps and mommy makeovers more or less. So anything to add for this, you think, on that note, or a story or something or insight in terms of practice wise?
Yeah, I'm sure there's something, maybe not off the top of my head,
No, that's all right. And we can
but
come back to it too if you think.
I really, I think that I it's hard to any job that you're going to do is going to have its difficulties, no matter what you're doing. But ultimately, if you I've found that, there's a lot of days, and I'll even tomorrow I'll be like, oh, get frustrated with life, but you got to ride the roller coaster and expect the lows, and really don't focus on the highs and lows. Just observe it, and always don't make any big rash decisions. I'm just speaking from experience that I've gotten very frustrated with the profession, as well as super happy and joyful and appreciative of Megan experienced patients and what they're going through. But ultimately, as a whole, it's just a wonderful thing. And I'm I'm happy to be a plastic, to be in this profession. So I don't identify with it, but like it's not like my main identity. I was like I mentioned earlier, but it's definitely if in the in this culture and world, the if it's, a job, this is my favorite, by far for sure, because I just have so many interests out in other places too. And uh, anyway, I guess that's my final thought. If that made any sense.
Yeah, it's a good thought. Hey, this is Dr. Steffen again with Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery, and we're meeting with my very good friend, Dr. Jeffrey Rao, about an hour, would that be an hour east of New Orleans in Houma, Louisiana? So,
An hour west,
hour
southwest.
west, southwest. Well, I had that totally wrong, but anyway, close to New Orleans.
Yeah.
In this segment, we want to chat a little bit about, dive into kind of more of the medical aspect of your practice and talk about kind of, different plastic surgeons. Plastic surgery is a very broad field. We're trained broadly, but like you mentioned before, there's a little bit of the Renaissance artistry to it. The reason we're trained broadly is because of that wide set of skill sets like you have. And so, what I wanted to talk to you about was, your favorite sort of procedures that you like to do. I'm sure you have many. They're like kids, hard to pick a favorite one. But is there something in your practice that you favor over the others, or maybe reasons that particular parts of your practice would stand out as far as surgeries go?
Yeah, so I have probably it's probably 70% cosmetic practice and 30% reconstructive, as a whole, generally speaking. And you're right, there's a lot of favorites. There's new cases that come in that interest you all the time. Like, wow, I've never seen that, probably never will again. And those are the ones we probably text each other about or show an interesting case. I mean, those are fun and interesting, and because you apply principles from other stuff that you do, or you maybe did one in training, or you heard about one but you never got to do one. So those are always fun, and can be a favorite easily. But as a whole, like taking all of the practice, I kind of think about it in three different categories. And one of them is, an easy one. A lot of people will say, like, the way I process is to say, what's your low stress surgery? Because a lot of people just want something that's routine and good and easy and has all the good high points. And tummy tuck and abdominoplasty, we do a lot of those. They're great. It's not that they're easy. They're just easier than, there's no symmetry issues. The belly's laid right out there. You don't have to do awkward positioning to go lipo or do different things. And it's quite routine, and you don't have to think quite as much with that for sure. And you can do more of that chatting that we talked about in the OR, and it can be a quite easy routine to have that on your schedule most days. Uh,
Tell people who are listening a little bit about the pearls of what makes that kind of a slam dunk operation for you. What are kind of parts of the row technique that make it so good and your patients so happy with their results after a tummy tuck they've had with you?
Yeah, I've kind of made it into, I mean, a very routine method type of thing where patients come in, and we talk about every surgery underneath. I mean, using the Vector 3D imaging, which I know I've talked in the group chat about a lot. And
Tell patients a little bit about Vectra and how that works.
yeah, it's a 3D imaging technology. I have no interest. I mean, I'm not invested in it anyway, but I would buy it 3, 4 times over, because it really helps patients understand the difficult part of our job, which is patient expectation. It helps them understand what they would look like after surgery. So it shows them a very clear image on a screen that you can spin around and look from every little angle. And it's that way you're both speaking the same language. Because if I'm talking about their belly, they're looking at it from above, I'm looking at it from this way. I always say I can draw pretty good. I can talk plenty, but there's nothing like seeing you on this vector screen. So I bring it up. I show them what they look like. They have various little things that you can measure on there and show you things that you may need, especially for breasts, for asymmetries and so forth. But on there, you can also show them, look, if you just did liposuction, you would look like this. If I did a tummy tuck, you look like this. And then it's able to convince them and help educate them on what they're getting into. And so
So
that
it literally simulates their post-operative result before
shows
they
the
ever dive
result.
into surgery. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm able to kind of get in a ballpark of, you know, this is what it'll get you. And it simulates quite well, you know, in most situations. And just with the core of the body, can't do arms and legs quite as well. It does the face and the core of the body. But I use that thing on pretty much every consult where I can. And then some patients you see that, oh, okay, now I get it, you know, because if I didn't have that, and I feel like I'd have a lot more unsatisfied or unhappy patients, or help them understand that they may need implants or they may need this and they or not need lipo, you know. So it is super helpful because pictures say 1,000 words. You know, I don't feel like I can ever, nobody can, I feel, truly explain something to a patient and understand it without seeing it. So I am a big fan, a big advocate for that, for Vectra. I would, like I said, I use it as often as possible. So I'm able to show them on there for tummy tucks what they look like before and after. I take them to surgery. I mark them exactly where they would like the incision to lie in their underwear. We then go to sleep, and then you do liposuction routinely, which is something we didn't routinely do in training, but it's
Right.
evolved into lipo, just a regular part of tummy tucks. So
Hmm.
to get patients closer to their result, you know, you got to shape the body. You can't just look at the tummy. You got to fade it into the other parts of the body, because when you stand up, you got some things that aren't that. You know, this looks good, but then right next to it is something else going on. So lipo allows us to correct that and so forth. So
Kind
uh,
of describe for everybody in terms of what the focus. What often needs liposuction, and why and where, and what does that help you in terms of your tummy tech?
yeah,
Where are those common areas that people are needing that liposuction for, and how do
so
you use it as a tool?
I focus mostly on the flanks and also the mons area and some of the lateral abdomen. I used to do a little bit more of the midline zone one stuff, but you know, I have found that you know, we hurting the blood vessels has caused more wound complications.
Hmm.
So you can only do so much. So
Right.
sometimes, ideally, I tell patients, especially that have a little bit more fat, that you know, in an ideal world, I would like another touch-up lipo round on you in 6 months to a year. But most people are satisfied enough. But you
Right.
can only do what the body makes the rules. You got to follow them,
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
And another thing that I commonly say is the more you do, the more likely you need a touch-up, especially for massive weight loss patients. You're going to pull a bunch of skin and you're moving, got a bunch of moving parts. It becomes like a Rubik's Cube. You know, you got to do only so much and then let it settle, then come back and address some issues later.
Hmm.
So yeah, back to the lipo. We lipo the flanks, lateral abdomen, the mons to help taper all of these surrounding areas into the belly and sometimes up into the lateral chest, depending upon the patient's anatomy. After the lipo's done, we then make the incision, go down the abdominal wall and dissect all the way up to the ribs, elevating the abdominal muscles and the skin off of the abdominal muscles. And then most of the time, for sure, you're doing what we call a rectus plication, tightening of the muscle down the midline in a couple of layers. And routinely using Exparel. I know everybody, we started using it in training. It was fairly new then, but I use that in most situations too. And Exparel is a long-acting pain medication that takes the edge off for 3 days, and it's revolutionized pain control to where some patients don't even take narcotics post-op. I've
Hmm.
had some patients saying, you know, I'm going to be your worst patient. I'm gonna need a lot of pain meds, and they don't take any. So,
Yeah.
so really, it's not as painful as some people think or imagine it is. Mostly because of that medicine, for sure. But then, yeah, excising a very carefully marked amount of skin and doing a progressive tension closure, like we learned, and pulling it down and it from the high lateral tension down to the middle and let it taper just right to get a very natural cosmetic result. It's
So
it's quite routine, yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned, the lipo kind of making the waist and shaping and transitioning from the part below an incision and up to the breasts and the sides and all of that to give those curves, right? That's kind of what you're optimizing on that part. And then you mentioned that rectus plication. What is this problem that, women who have had multiple kids and sometimes fewer than that, or people who've lost a lot of weight, they know this experience. What is it for people who don't know about that, or people who don't know what to call it? What's going on there with those muscles that you're sewing them together, or how does that work?
Yeah, so most women uh, that have kids, they what happens is the child inside their abdomen stretches the abdominal muscles apart, the fascia in between the rectus abdominis muscles. So it's not, people think, oh, it's a hernia. No, it's just a general weakness. So you're stretching it out, And whenever you have the baby, it doesn't really go right back together.
Mm.
This is a
Kind of the
general
mom pooch thing.
mom pooch thing that you can't quite, you're always sucking it in. And the consult, you always have to go, okay, deep breath in, deep breath out, because I'm trying to feel for the diastasis, and everybody naturally holds their abdomen tight. It's just like a,
Right.
not even thinking about it.
Right.
And so you go, okay, now really let your belly loose. So and then and then you push it on it. There it is, and you can feel it. But what the rectus plication does is brings those muscles back in line together, and makes it to where you don't have to suck in really as much anymore. It
Hmm.
makes your fascia a lot tighter. So there's no opening like a hernia. It's just a general stretch
Hmm.
your abdominal wall. I also see it in patients that have lost a lot of weight because they have intra-abdominal fat that that you can lose, and then that still gives you a little bit of looseness there. But yeah, the overwhelming majority of people have some laxity in their abdominal wall that need plication. Overwhelming
Sure.
majority, especially if you had some like, oh, I don't have one. Well, there's not black and white. It's you can have most people at least have a little bit and would benefit from a tightening. The only people that sometimes don't are the people that have still a lot of, lost a bunch of weight, but have a lot of skin, and maybe they don't have a significant enough rectus diastasis relative to the amount of skin that you're removing to make that painful postoperative recovery necessary. So you may not plicate those people because you're not going to notice as much of a difference, but you're taking off still probably 10 plus pounds of skin and fat. That's making all the difference. So
Hmm.
that's what's going into the muscle tightening, the rectus plication that we routinely do.
So, and then what in terms of what's actually removed, what's present there before and what's coming off on that lower part of the tummy tuck? For you mentioned that bikini line scar that goes down nice and low and hides in the underwear or swimsuit or whatever. What are you taking out, and like how much is it, and why does that have to go?
So they're taking out skin and fat, and that's obviously that lower belly apron, that thing that most women and men, I've done quite a few men over the years too, but you're taking off a good bit of skin and fat, and then that is usually the bulk of the problem for most people. You can lipo the flank and you can tighten the muscle, but the main part for most patients ends up being this skin and fat removal that is significant. There are wonderful new gadgets that I will get, but like these different radio frequency devices that help tighten the underlying
Right.
tissue, and those have definitely a play, but nothing quite addresses excess tissue like removing it with
Hmm.
a staple. And that's where our technology is now, and then that's why I you need to see a difference. People come in, they want to see a difference, and a lot of things that the gadgets and stuff, the lasers and everything that can exist, they're tweaks. They're often tweaks, but they're good. I mean, but nothing's quite like surgery,
Right.
still. And then I don't think anything will rival it in the near future. But yeah, that's the main part, and then a very careful layered closure to give you a beautiful seamless incision that lies hidden in underwear or swimsuit.
Cool. And then belly button goes away, gets moved, stays the
So
same. A lot of people worried about their belly button before a tummy tuck.
yeah,
What goes on there?
yeah, I'm definitely obviously leave it. I'm not like the people, the Hoyas people that remove it and make a new belly button. I think that would freak too many people out. One, although that's a great idea. I like that. It's a neat idea. You got to have patients that really trust the process, and you got to take into account some people just like, ooh, I don't have a belly button for a while. But yeah, I keep the belly button intact for sure. And I like to do we used to do more of a Y a lot in training. I've done more of an upside down U, and I try to do various tricks to help hold the belly button stalk down so it really pulls the incision that you see deep, because sometimes people have a long belly button stalk, and then you'll see some of the scar, and sometimes I'm revising those 6 months to a year post-op, because sometimes people do need tweaks. That's I'd say about 10 or 20% of people could use a tweak in some way or another. But yeah, trying to really pull that incision and that stalk deep to make it look like a very natural belly button.
Cool. I know tummy tucks aren't your only thing. You have other interests as well. What are some of the other things, and why, you like that one because it's kind of one of those high producer, people love the results. It's a reliable thing. You don't have to overthink it. You go and you do it and it turns out good, and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, that's kind of the
Yeah,
appeal of
and
that
like I
procedure.
mentioned, Yeah, from your selfish side, everybody likes some low stress things in their life, and having, it's not as much symmetry involved, although there is, but it's not like two breasts kind of symmetry. It's just a little bit lower in on the thought level, so that's good to have. And yeah,
Slam dunk, right?
slam dunk and makes patients happy. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
common thing. It's a wonderful surgery from a lot of angles. The other category that I like more is the challenge category, like your real difficult breast revision breast cosmetic breast revision, to where you're having to bring in all these different things like meshes and lipo and carefully plan out exactly how you're going to do it, remove some breast tissue because and move the nipple again and decide how big of an implant you're going to go with, and sometimes you have a capsular contracture and a ruptured implant. So these are so many moving parts between like the skin type, the laxity of the deep breast tissue and the parenchyma, how much you want to remove and replace with implant, and then trying to predict how it's going to settle. So there's so many moving parts, and it can really be a challenge, and it takes every bit of what and what you've experienced, and always still learning, like we talked about. But I really love those challenges. I have one of my most heartfelt letters I got from a patient back in the spring. She had a totally, I mean, really bad situation going on that really made her self-conscious, and for 10 years, and after having the surgery previously, and I did a lot of those same tricks I just described. I was in there for a while, and it was a tough case, but she came out really looking good, and I kind of was moved to tears really reading her letter. It was really sweet. But that can be quite satisfying. You walking out like that was tough, and I applied everything I know, and it's a good pat on your own back. But especially when you get those letters and the satisfied patients, and that's everything to me. So that kind of leads me to my, you got tummy tucks, which are easy. I mean, good, reliable, make people happy kind of cases. And you have a good revision thing that's challenging to me at the same time, making people happy. And then, the third category that I kind of almost call my favorite surgery just as a whole is the deep flap procedure, which is in line with this month, the deep inferior epigastric perforator flap surgery to
So that's a
reconstruct breast. Yeah.
breast cancer surgery, right?
Breast cancer surgery.
Yeah,
So
cool.
it's in line with October. And we do quite a few of those. And when I say we, it's usually a two-surgeon gig because it's quite involved. And myself and my colleague, Dr. Mark Stalder, he's based out in New Orleans. He comes down and we do them together. And he and I trained together in general surgery days before going into plastics and finished about the same time. And we've got a good relationship and had a over the past 5 years or more, we've done numerous patients, and the process that I love about all that is watching a patient come in with just a new cancer diagnosis, kind of looking confused and already seen a couple of physicians, and kind of very much in the dumps and not in a good place. And I take the consult very slow to try to talk through every little process, every little part of it, and I make it a very important point to say that the part about my job is not, people come in and they feel like they're vain for wanting to make their breasts look good, just treat this cancer. Like, yes, of course, we're treating the cancer. But the big part is that I want you to be able to look at yourself in the mirror 5, 10, 20 years down the road and go, I didn't have breast cancer. Because if you have any kind of scars that make you look like you had breast cancer, you're going to wake up every day and you're going to take your shower. You're either not going to look at yourself or you're going to look at yourself and kind of just in deep conscious, you're beating yourself up like we all do sometimes. And you're like, I have cancer. I'm a scarred cancer person, even though you're in remission. So the confidence that patients come out with on the other side after going through a big surgery, that's technically the most difficult thing that I do. And because it's a microscopic surgery where you're sewing very small blood vessels together, and to get to move the belly tissue, the tummy tuck tissue, which is just skin and fat, up to the chest, you're sewing in the artery and vein into the ribs, vessels right behind the ribs, and the glowing person that you see on the other end of that is so fulfilling to me and everybody in this office. They become like a first name basis, most of the breast cancer patients, and they are like a new person. It's a blessing in disguise for a lot of these patients, and they'll say that. They when you first get diagnosed, I mean, it's the worst thing in the world, but they come out of it shining brighter than ever. and I'm riding the wave with them. That's what I need a boost for the day. I see the next breast cancer person that came through, and I'm like, I like seeing them, overseeing them. Like, yeah, don't come back in a few months. Let me say hi to you again, that kind of thing. That's how close we are, and that's how everybody in the office is with them too. So we take a lot of pride in that patient population for sure, because of where they start and where they finish and what they go through, and we're there for every step. And it's a big surgery. It takes a lot of hours, but every part of it is so satisfying to me and for the patient, because compared to implant reconstruction, we did mostly that in training and did a lot of it. And I love implant reconstruction, but compared to it, I think it's not nowhere near as good, because you get your own tissue. I feel like the longevity of that result, I know that patient's not come and see me for a touch up in 5, 6 years because their implant lost position, or they got a contracture, or they ruptured, or any of that stuff. And I've seen my own patients from early in my practice, plenty, to have to touch things up. And some of them I've done flaps on. And so for the patient, I don't want them to have to, there's a lifetime of come and get touch-ups down the road, even though a lot of patients don't need it. I'm just saying that when you go through this, it's nice to use your own tissue and just get through this. I'm always a big advocate for removing both breasts, because I just think like I would want to think. I've seen enough recurrences. I've seen enough, like, just remove both breasts. We can reconstruct them very much more easily at the same time if we're doing the same thing to both breasts. And then, these kind of people, as much as I like, all of them, you don't have to see me anymore as the rest of your life to come get things adjusted and corrected and so forth. And you can forget you ever had breast cancer. Uh, so that kind of brings everything together, from being a technically difficult case involving similar incision and process as the tummy tuck, because we got to do the same incision, it's the same stuff, and then a microscopic surgery that really brings you, sewing little vessels together, along with my colleague, Dr. Mark Salter, who's kind of he's the guy that does it every day. So it's good having a guy, I work really well together, a guy that really has a sound way of doing these flaps. Working together to get these done really quickly and successfully. We have, knock on wood, not lost any flaps, because there's always a chance of that. But we, had surviving flaps for everybody. And it's just a great overall surgery.
That's awesome. Tell people a little bit, if you could paint a little picture, because you could probably break this down into 2, 3, 4, 5 steps or whatever. How do you think about the surgery? And for people who aren't there, a lot of people who are listening do know a thing or two about DEEP flap or DIEP flap. But tell them a little bit about, you mentioned kind of tummy tuck, you mentioned microsurgery. What's that all about?
Yeah, so preoperatively, you plan it out by getting a CTA scan. We routinely do that, to map out where the blood vessels come up through the abdominal tissue and supply the skin and fat of the abdominal wall. That way, we can know exactly where to go to identify these vessels to make the surgery go predictable and smoothly. Uh, the,
So you do this scan and it shows you blood vessels. So these blood vessels are going to the lower part of the tummy, is that right?
That's correct. Right,
Eh,
all over, pretty much all around the umbilicus, around the belly button. Usually more inferiors are the ones that we're targeting, right below the belly button, and we mark them with a pin, and then we know where to expect them, because they can be in a lot of places, but we know exactly where to expect them on a patient, so that when we go in, we're like, okay, this is where it's coming up. I need to kind of slow down and look for it, to allow us to get to it very safely and carefully, because like I mentioned, it's spaghetti strings. I mean, it's 2 to 3 millimeter blood vessels, and smaller, really, where you get close to the flap. So you cannot be, you have to be very gentle. You have to very carefully. Your assistant that's holding has to just barely retract with just the right amount of force, and pull too hard, they can pull the pedicle off. So they're just holding barely, and you're constantly adjusting. But you have to. There's a thing in surgery where we develop a sense for sterility. We all know hands above waist and all these general things. Well, that's the next level of awareness of, we have our general surgery style of being a little more rough with things, and it's kind of like reminds me of the late great Dr. Kennedy that trained us. He's like, it takes about 6 months to beat that general surgery out of you. You kind of, but as far as he's talking about being finesse, because in certain professions, you don't have to be as, because general surgery and then a lot of things we do in plastic surgery, tummy tucks, you don't have to be as finesse with some of those things. But this surgery, you have to develop that sense of being
A real
very
microsurgery, right?
microsurgery mindset of everything is very delicate. You are in a china shop. You have to sit here and just peel it away. We're not in a hurry. We're removing, but you cannot, you mess that vessel up, you ruin the surgery. So every little step matters. And so you're clipping each branch of the tree as you're going, marching down into the belly. And, and then being, underneath the microscope, your loops. And then you're taking that and then you're transferring it. So,
So wait, you're using, just to clarify, you're using the fat that you would have, if this lady didn't have cancer and she were a tummy tuck patient, you're using the same skin and fat that you would have just thrown in the garbage. You're finding the blood vessel that nourishes that, and then you're going to make a breast out of that.
that's correct. Just using mostly the fat and only a little bit of the skin to make a new areola. And
That's pretty amazing.
it is amazing. And I always tell patients that, the core principle in plastic surgery is we have to replace like with like. So what's missing when we remove a breast after the general surgeon does that, the first part of the surgery, general surgeon is removing the fatty breast tissue and the glands of the breast, and oftentimes the nipple too, which involves some of the ducts. And that the glands, ducts, that's the problematic part of the breast. So you don't want that anyway. So that's gone. But mostly the fat is, I mean, the breast is a lot of fat too, right? Especially as patients age. And so you were replacing like with like. So we're taking your own fat and doing an auto transplant back to yourself. So we know your body loves you, so we don't have to worry about rejection drugs and everything. We're just completely freeing it away and going to sew it back into another area. So we are truly replacing mostly like with like, just don't have the glands in there. So when patients say, "Oh, I got these reconstructed things," I go, "That's your breast. That's the same skin you have. That's the breast skin. That's just some fat just brought from another area. That's just to fill in for where you." So it was still, it's still the same thing as it was. So don't look at it as anything different. That's your breast. It just doesn't have the glands in anymore that causes the cancer. And sometimes some patients, we reconstruct nipples to look just as good as before, but some patients are able to keep their nipples, and that's like even more. It's like that's your breast. So, so yeah, it's like with like. It's transferring fat to an area that had fat.
That's plastic surgery 101, right? Replace
That's
like with
right.
like, right?
That's right. That's right. So it's very satisfying for that. And the general surgeon removes the breast tissues, checks on some lymph nodes typically, and then after that we then dissect in between the ribs, just removing a little bit of cartilage of the rib near the sternum, and find those little mammary blood vessels that are the same size as the vessels from the tummy, and we connect an artery to an artery and a vein to a vein, and you like got blood flow in, blood flow out. And I always make the analogy for people. I say if you take New Orleans and you cut the interstates off and the causeway and all the bridges, and we go plant it in the middle of, anywhere America, and we just hook up the causeway again, eventually other roads are going to reconnect again. And that's how the flap works. So the body naturally will come in and say the outer skin will then make new blood connections to then, make new roads. So later on, you could technically cut that main pedicle where we anastomose, where we connect it to the chest vessels, and it would still survive. We don't do that, but that's how magic the body is. It's very neat and beautiful the way it works.
That's pretty cool. So who all is getting this? Is this breast cancer patients only, or are there some people who are who don't technically have breast cancer who get that procedure? Who's getting a deep flap?
Yeah, great question. The other population I would say right behind breast cancer patients are people that are gene positive for breast cancer. So people that you might have heard of BRCA, BRCA, that family members have multiple sibling or sisters and aunts and moms and grandmothers that they get tested for the gene, and if they have it, you're more likely to have cancer in your lifetime than not. So they have prophylactic mastectomies and will use tissue to reconstruct theirs. So technically they didn't have cancer, but they're very likely to have cancer. I have a couple of patients who've been approved from insurance to have mastectomies because they have a very bad fibrocystic disease that gives chronic pain and problems that are even concern on mammograms and ultrasounds for cancer that that it's more beneficial just to be done with it because they've had so many biopsies. And then The other group that I'd say is not common and it is possible is to do it as a cosmetic thing because some women come in and don't want implants. Um, and I mean they come in, but we have it's hard to find some of these people because it is a little more expensive to have to undergo the two surgeon process. But we're always like looking for that person that doesn't want implants, wants a tummy tuck, and would like to use their own tissue. They're perfect candidates, and they're just as much of a candidate as just be more out of pocket costs because insurance wouldn't cover. But yes, that is still very possible to use your own tummy tuck tissue to make your breast. So we will do
That's
one. We will do one day. I had a couple of close candidates, but like yeah, it's just you
one of
gotta
these
you
days.
gotta make
You
it make
text
sense.
me when you do.
Yeah, I will.
Um, so you talked about, I mean, we already have a sense that this person's transformed. Their tummy is flat and smooth. They have a new belly button, and then they have breasts that aren't going to give them cancer, that are similar in shape and size to what they would want anyway, or even maybe shapely or look like they had a breast lift or something. Is that really is that an honest take on a deep flap result with you and your associate?
Absolutely. We pride ourselves on making the full result look the way it, as ideal and as natural as it can. We do every person gets a second stage, no matter what kind of reconstruction you're getting, whether it's implant or flaps. Sometimes we even do a third stage if we want to tweak something else. That's just to get it just right. And that's just us being extra picky sometimes, but or sometimes it just takes that long for certain patients, but most 90% just have this two stages. You have a second surgery that's outpatient, that's done several months later after they're done with their chemo or treatments or whatever may be needed, but you want to wait several months anyway to let the flap take hold and be happy. And then you can treat it just like a cosmetic case. We go do a breast lift, we can make nipples, like a little bump of a nipple, and we can liposuction and transfer that fat to help shape the breast further and revise scars if you developed any deepened scars or wounds on the tummy. That this first surgery we always say is about volume, and the second surgery is all about shape. And the second surgery is much easier as an outpatient, but both of them are like some people compare like the deep flap surgery to implants and like I don't have to have a cut on my belly, but most women are not mad at having to remove belly tissue because usually they don't want it. If they got it there to make a breast, they're like, sure, that's the silver lining of it all. But it's that's why the surgery in so many ways it's just the ideal surgery for breast cancer.
Hmm.
You
That's
come out blowing in even more with no foreign material and get rid of your tummy tissue also, and you
right.
can feel better and more confident coming out of that surgery, which is as a whole, like not just cancer patients, but I was saying how gratifying it is to see that person shine at the other end. But I love just as much that cosmetic patient that's a little self-conscious, just like the patient the letter that one that shines. I realize how much that means to me and how, once you establish your practice and the feel good stuff and I just really in my, I'm sure I'll grow to love it more and more as my practice goes on, but I'm really just trying to see that revived person on the other end, that confident person. That's what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm thinking about. And so, I used to have this thoughts in my head like plastic surgery is kind of, not a as far as compared to other reputable. You think I'm just making people look good. I'm putting breast
Hmm.
implants and
Not a noble medical profession,
I
right?
don't
That's
know.
the common com
Not a no.
dig we get, right?
That could be further from the truth because I don't I don't ever look at any patient like a cookie cutter, get them in the conveyor belt and let's go. Like some people that fly to other countries to go get cheaper surgery. That I think that's how some of them look at them, looking at the results sometimes. But I look at each person as their own unique person. I see the face, I develop a picture in my mind, and I never approach any surgery the exact same. I mean, it's just my natural way. It's some of it. It's like, no, I just kind of want to do this a little bit different, and it can kind of bother the OR staff because they're not used to, I don't have any kind of set routine. But if it doesn't make sense to me to do it, that I'm doing everybody's case a little bit different in some way. So I'm not a robot. My brain doesn't work like that. I can never remember algorithms in training. I was like, does it make sense? I'll follow it, yeah, they make sense when you look at the screen and follow an algorithm. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's got to just flow common sense wise for me. And that's how I've approached every patient. And I think it's translated well because every person truly is different. You can't, you say, yeah, you're doing generally the same thing, but there's always something different about each patient. And that's how I treat each thing. I want each person to have the best outcome I can give them. And it's not the same.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear. That's great. Um, I think that's good. Anything else about deep flaps or those two? I mean, that was good. I was moved by that, Jeff.
No,
That's good
it's
stuff.
real, man. But yeah,
I know it is.
it's a big part of my practice. I'm proud. I'm fortunate to get to do it. It makes me, the other thing about stopping smelling the roses, having to do a microsurgery, it makes me stop and slow down and focus on something as opposed to keep moving. My ADHD, like my wife says, I'm able to in surgery, I'm only focusing on one thing, and particularly a microsurgery. You're like, okay, I'm really calm right now, and it kind of almost meditative in a way to when you're sewing the vessel together in the microscope. Mark and I, Dr. Stoddard, went across the thing, and that's when you kind of like have some real, you just kind of, that's when it's fun. It really is fun to sew those, and you're just talking and laughing a little more, or because you're really quiet and still, and I feel like that's a different, the best part of the surgery.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Unfortunately, probably most of the people listening can't and will maybe never get the chance to be in an operating room and watch people doing microsurgery. But it's just so interesting that um, the way that a surgeon is positioned. When you and I have been under the scope together many times for microsurgery, and what a great experience that is. But basically, you have what, thumb, index finger, middle finger on each hand may or may not be moving, or just one hand, and the rest of the
Right,
body.
right.
Right? You're just breathing, right?
Just breathing, and you are resting your hands, and you're noticing the subtlest of movements. It makes a big change difference underneath the scope. So you really are just truly still, and everybody's still. And it's just, usually you got some more mellow music on. It fits the vibe a lot better, at that point
Uh-huh.
of surgery. So you may adjust the music if it's a little too much beat or something, But yeah, it's really a peaceful experience in a way in surgery.
All right, back with Dr. Rao. This is Caleb Steffen, Coast to Coast Plastic Surgery, and Dr. Rao's been gracious enough to spend a lot of time with us here today. And so we're going over just you had the floor to start with. We're going to let you finish with it. In terms of closing thoughts, what any particular trends you're watching in plastic surgery?
Major trends, I think when it comes to deciding to do surgery, a lot of people won't commit to a lift or won't commit to this or that because they don't want the scar of surgery.
Mm.
And as you know, we don't like scars either. We try to hide them. We don't like to put scars. We're not looking forward to them, but body makes the rules, we have to follow it. So I think the advancement and the fine tuning of all the laser technology to get rid of scars completely, and that combined with tattooing, I'd like to think that the evolution of it all in the next 10 to 20 years will be pretty impressive to where you'll be able to see a lot of people that have seamless scars, because we see those on some patients now that we want to test their blood or test their DNA to see why they just have no scars, or you can barely see them. Well, we can possibly do that with some of the lasers and so forth. But I think that's the next big thing, and it seems it's to me it's kind of like, yeah, everybody wants a nice scar, but we can actually maybe get there. So that's my hope. That's what I think.
That's a pretty neat horizon. I think that would be something to shoot for. What about in your own office or practice? You have a favorite product, favorite device that's or something new that's coming along?
So I don't have anything new, but I failed to mention that I am in a new office, brand new office. Only been here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Been in here 3 months, and I say new, but it's actually quite old. As I mentioned earlier, my home out in the country is a 120-year-old money pit, and I still have my house in Chattanooga because I love Chattanooga. My wife's from there, and people rent it and so forth, and we go stay there whenever we're up there every few months or so. And that
And I know the
house,
Steffens have been there. We
Stephens have been there.
Beautiful place.
We've had all the kids there. Cooper's been out there working in the garage that one time
Uh-huh.
on a project. And I love that house. I hope to actually partially retire there one day. I love that old hunt. That one's only 100 years old. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to find a building. I mean, I'm going to build a brand new one or pretty new building. I'm tired of. I don't want to deal with old things because my house here has been quite the money pit. But then, couldn't help myself. This building's 140 years old. So
Wow. You topped yourself. You outdid yourself.
I outdid it because I just it's fitting because I just like to say that I like to take old beauties and polish them off a little bit, because the 1900s they knew how to make houses and make them well and timeless appearing, and so restoring their original beauty and just accenting it and bringing that back out, which is, I'm in a pretty neat street of downtown Houma where they got some other businesses. They got a dentist office next door, and then was a Mexican restaurant next door. It's about to be another restaurant, and so there's other businesses on this old street, but they got people that live in these old homes, and they're pretty. They really got a lot of character. So I love that. I love working on some of it myself. This office, I worked on some things, but definitely took a lot of my energy the past 2 years. So I slowly got this place into the shape that I wanted to be in, and it's been quite the endeavor. But investing my time and energy and money into this has been what I've been focusing on. But I look to in the next year or so definitely bring on my first laser or some type of skin tightening device that I think will add to and a missing piece of the puzzle to help tighten some people's skin up, like we said, skin
Mhm.
tights, and that can make all the difference. And I'd like to definitely add that here, as well as maybe even add my own OR. I got space to do it one day, but baby steps. I'm just happy to be in it, and we got a lot of room now, and the office has been totally revitalized. So I'm very happy to be on this end of that. So,
Very nice. Very nice. What about something, there's sometimes we talked about some trends in plastic surgery, like maybe we're, going scarless as things move forward, that we can hide the presence of scars in patients so effectively you can't see it. What about things that are, social media is popular, people are doing their own research. As plastic surgeons, where a lot of times we're shaking our heads looking at the next trend that comes out that you're like, this is nonsense. Is there anything like that lately that you've seen that where you're just, just so distraught over what's coming out publicly in one trend or another?
right. I don't like being a hater or you try to keep yourself in check. Like,
Keep it
you don't
positive. Yeah.
keep it positive. And of all people that love ideas, it's me and you. We love. It's like you gotta, you got to try. You got to, so I'm never hating on anybody else that's trying stuff for sure. And I've always, my new term, one of my favorite terms that I've come across to try not to procrastinate so much is called failing forward. So I've done a lot more, including, like a painting I recently did when we did a breast cancer awareness month painting. But I had to fail forward, just commit. Like, this is my painting. I'm done. I would like to make it better, but this is, it's stuff like that. So I do respect people that we're trying to do something new, cutting edge, but sometimes old stuff gets recycled, and it's kind of like the thread stuff in the face. I don't know. I just
Hmm.
kind of feel like that just it had it in the breast when I was in general surgery of the face too, and then it came back up. I mean, that's the only one that comes to mind right now. And I just maybe, yeah, it seems to be the same thing every time, but it's just
Right.
kind of because I've seen a few patients who come see me and like by facelift, and then they're like, I had this threads and this, but it's a good try. It kind of works a little bit at first,
Yeah.
but it's just just kind of digging up some old stuff that wasn't working. So, other than that, I mean, I always applaud people that are trying it. I mean, maybe it was something a little different I didn't realize, but yeah, I'm never one to trying to look down on anything because it's how we come up with new ideas. You got to keep trying it.
True.
Maybe there's one done right. You just got to keep tweaking it. So
Yeah. That's kind of a difference about plastic surgery, right? Innovation's encouraged, right? I
yeah.
mean, plastic surgeon did first kidney transplant, first skin grafts. I mean, you name it, right?
Right. Right. You gotta can't be scared to fail. That's Babe Ruth having the most, strikeouts and how many different things that Thomas said is always people that failed at stuff. It's you hear all the
Hmm.
stories but you don't know about those that often. You hear about all the successes. So yeah,
Hmm.
kudos to the people that I'd like to be that person at one point in my life to keep to innovative and doing something neat, but I'm also at the same time I like being the on the lines, on the front lines, and kind of taking care of patients. So anything that takes me away from that, I feel like I'm not doing my part, especially in my hometown where I feel like that's where I'm needed, and that's always been my strength. Is just I feel like just doing the job that all the giants that whose shoulders we stand on, carrying that out.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll do all the innovative stuff in farming and the logistics and farming or something. That'll be the things I help move forward or something.
Very good. Well, we've hit on a lot of highlights of your life and your practice. Anything in particular that you would like patients to know about you or your practice? Something, special that you find, or I mean, you bring so much to the table and so much to your community, and even much broader to the region that you're in. Any thoughts about that in terms of
So,
you know?
yeah, like so in a time where everybody, you go get, you know, like your oil change, you pop in, you're just trying to get a good deal and trying to move out. You're trying to get a good deal, and such busy, our lives are so busy and so forth, and everything's on social media, and how important does that guy look on social media and this one, and I always say I need to do more stuff on social media for sure. But the one thing that I've always been most proud of is whenever you have a family or friend or somebody referred the patient to me, which
Mm,
ends up being the majority of my patients. I take my job very seriously. I don't look at any person like anything other than a real human being, and I want to do the best for them. So that makes me feel good showing up every day to work and not, treating it like a business. I'm not a good businessman. I'm a product man, and my product is what I do every day. And I let everybody else over here figure the business part out. So I come to work as if some numbers don't add up on certain times of the year or whatever, it's like I know my patients are okay. I'm happy. So you're going to get the best quality focused care. I feel like from me, and I'm picky, and I want to do what's best for you and right for you. And so I feel like that more of like I'm more on the human level, and when it comes to plastic surgery and doing something that's making you feel more confident, more that you can bring your real self out. I think it's important to come to somebody that's focused on all of you in the right way. So I think that's who I am, and I'm not about making money, even though I need to pay bills and people's salary in this office. But I'm mostly about good results and making people very happy with them.
that's great. That's great. Well, so patients have had a chance to, and listeners have had a chance to meet you now. How will people find you either on social media or to get a consultation? What can they do to do that? We'll try to add that information on the screen for people who are watching. But how can they find you?
So it's the browplastics.com is our website.
Okay, and that's RAU, correct?
RAU plastics with an S at the end.com.
Okay.
And then I'm on Facebook under Raw Plastic Surgery. And also you can call the office at 985-709-0467. And we're also on Instagram as Raw Plastics. So those are all the ways to get in touch with us. And yeah, we please, if you ever have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to message us on the messenger board, or come see me in person.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us. And it's always good to see you. I mean, I feel like we hadn't caught up in such a long time. It's great to have
Yeah.
this visit with you.
Yeah.
And any final words before we sign off?
Uh, Not really. Just I appreciate you doing this, man. We had some good training days together. It's nice you putting a spotlight on our profession, and I could think of a better guy to do that. I'm honored to be on the show.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks a lot, Jeff.
Man, thanks.